Hi everyone and welcome back to this channel of crafting, crochet and knitting. My name is Nikki. How are you guys doing? Let me know in the comments down below. I would be doing better except for the fact that for some reason this video is taking about 20 attempts to make, so I'm not doing so great right now, but let's see if this is better. Yeah. Anyway, let's get on with what I'm going to show you. So you might think, oh, the toys are back. I'm going to be showing you the toys. I will get around to showing you some toys. But just the first thing I wanted to do was show you some stuff that I actually made as a child, some of my first knitting projects, because I was going through some boxes recently and I found just a whole bunch of knitting stuff I did as a kid. A lot of it I've frogged back and just put in my scrap yarn pile because it was no good, but some of it I kept and thought, no, that's one of the first things I did, so I'm gonna keep that. So yeah, I'm just gonna warn you, remember I was a child, so focus was an issue. I only learned how to knit, so my projects are pretty plain at this point. And yeah, the combination of my being a child and focus being lacking and my projects being pretty plain as well meant that most of my projects were not very big projects. They were just like scarves for my teddy bears. So with that warning in mind, here are some of the very first things that I ever made as a child learning to knit. So the first thing I've got here is just a little scarf for a teddy bear in garter stitch, all in one colour, with some little tassels that I added, and I mean it really is tiny. That's how long it is. So literally just for a teddy bear. And I did then graduate to learning how to change colour. So this is a very mucky teddy bear blanket. Again, that's about how long it is. But I did learn how to change colour. I was doing quite well. I was doing quite well at this point, and then I got to here, this pink yellow change, and just randomly decided to change on the wrong side, it seems. So as a child and doing garter stitch only, I didn't really have a concept of a right and a wrong side of my work. So I just seemed to have been counting correctly in the first steps, and then didn't count correctly here and ended up changing sides. Ended up counting correctly, but I was already on the wrong side, so did that. Ended up counting incorrectly and flipping back to the correct side. Ended up counting incorrectly and flipping back to the wrong side. So I don't know what was going on when I made this, but still I was able to change the colour as a child, so that's better than nothing. I did, however, notice that I changed colour like part way through a row here, so I think I must have run out of orange and didn't know to frog it back and just do it at the end of a row at that point. So that's a bit untidy, unfortunately. But still, it's not the end of the world. It's just a teddy bear blanket. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself as a youngster for being able to do that. So yeah, I learnt to knit as a child. My mum taught me how to knit. I also had some written instructions for knitting. And that seemed to be working for me, but the purl stitch I just could not get my head around. My mum tried to show me and I couldn't do it, and I was getting frustrated. My grandma tried to show me. Same thing happened. I got frustrated because I wasn't able to do it. I tried using the written instructions. That was a disaster. And then that kind of meant that I only knew how to knit a garter stitch, so my projects were very on and off for a very long time, until I got to university and I decided I am going to learn how to purl. So what I did was I tried the written instructions again. That wasn't working at all. Went on to YouTube, because by the time that I was in university, YouTube was a much bigger thing. And so I had a quick look to see if anybody had done a video explaining how to do purl stitch, and they had. And the issue was that when you're knitting, your yarn is at the back of your work. When you're purling, you need your yarn at the front of your work. And this must have been something that my grandma and my mum were doing so automatically that it wasn't part of how they were showing me how to do the stitch, because I do remember that when I was learning how to do it, I was having problems with sort of like increasing or my stitches looking funny on the needle, and that would be what would happen if I had my yarn at the back of my work and I went into the stitch to start a purl stitch. I would end up bringing my yarn to the front in a way that increased my stitches, or made a stitch at a funny angle. So yeah, that's basically that teeny tiny little step was what I was having a problem with. So if you are learning how to knit or crochet and you are struggling, then it's not you. It's it's also, don't blame your teacher either. It's it's not either of your fault. It's just that you might be needing to learn in a different way. Teachers teach in different ways, pupils learn in different ways, and there are so many ways that you can learn now how to knit and crochet. You can ask many different people in craft groups, maybe not right now because of, you know, the issue, but when we're allowed to see people again, you can ask lots of different people because they'll teach in different ways. You can use written instructions from different books, or you can use videos online, and just remember that you just need to find the way that you learn. That's all there is to it. Nobody is at fault. You're not struggling because you can't do it. You just need to find the right way of teaching you how to do it. So that would be my words of encouragement. Everybody can knit and crochet. You just need to find the right teacher. So anywho, we are now like halfway through this video and I haven't gotten onto the toys yet, so let's get started talking about the toys. So far my collection kind of consists of maybe, I guess, 3 different types of toys. Majority of them are the Snuggle and Play crochet book creations, and about a month ago now, actually, wow, I asked you to vote on my next Snuggle and Play creation, and that was the bunny. So here we go. I finished this. Obviously, last week's video was just a day following me crocheting, and I was able to finish off the bunny. I was a little bit worried when I started the bunny because when I just had the head and the ears, the yellow didn't look like it was going to go with the grey nearly as well. But actually, now that I've got the arms and legs in place, I'm a lot happier with the yellow, especially as well now I've got that little detail too to break up the grey of the body. So yeah, super happy with the bunny. Couple of things that I have been learning. One is just the little nose. So the pattern called for lots of horizontal stitches between 2 gaps, and this did look okay until I tried to put the mouth in. I had a bit of an issue with the mouth because there wasn't a stitch that was directly below this other stitch where I started, so it's a little bit diagonal, but that also did mean that my horizontal stitches, I kind of distorted them when I put the mouth in, so I went back over and did lots of little vertical loops around those horizontal stitches just to tie it in place, so you can see they're all going into the same stitch there, and that has made this lovely little button nose. I have to be really careful, my nails are awful and I'm snagging my work. The other thing is stripes. So the pattern does actually say that to do the stripes you have to finish off the round, and for my own projects I'm lazy and I've been trying to experiment in finding a way of doing this that means I don't have to close off the round and have loads and loads of ends to weave in at the end, because that would be really tedious. So with the frog, who is also stripy, what I did was just to keep going. So I ignored the pattern completely when it said to close it off. Now what that means is your first stitch will travel in a round, and because of where you're overlaying it onto the previous one, so you can actually see where the first stitch has begun to move around the leg. So obviously that's why they tell you to close off the pattern. But what I did here was in my last green, for example, I went into the stitch, I yarned over in the green, I pulled the green through, but rather than finishing that stitch, I changed to blue by yarning over in blue and pulling a blue loop through those last 2 green loops, and then I would go on with the rest of the round in blue as normal, and then when I got to the end of the blue I'd do the same in reverse, blue and green in reverse. So that is a really tidy way, if you don't mind the fact that you can see your travelling stitch. So what I did was I just hid it under the arms, so there it is, under the arms, and at the back of the legs. So you can't see from the front that the frog has that. With the rabbit, I thought, okay, is there a way that I can close off the stitch without cutting my yarn? So what I did was I finished the last stitch completely in the previous colour, let's say grey, and then I slip stitched into the first stitch as if I was going to fasten it off. But when I pulled that through, I just left a really long grey loop that wouldn't be pulled out and kept it at the back of my work. And then I would join yellow yarn in the same stitch, in the first stitch, and I would do a yellow round, and I'd do the same thing at the end of the yellow round, and I'd then pick up the grey loop from behind my work. And I hoped that that would lead to a tidy finish. Perhaps the problem was that I was always joining back into the first stitch again, so my stitch was still going to travel, because you can see it, I've hidden it at the back of the leg again, hidden it at the back of the arms, that it has travelled, and I've got this overlap. It's still quite neat, but it is obviously not what's meant to be the pattern. The ear was actually very untidy in the way that it was made, potentially because of the increases and decreases. So again, that's been hidden at the back. So I have yet to provide a lazy solution to this striping in the round. Either way though, our bunny is absolutely lovely, and joining the other toys over here, trying to get it to stand up in a way that you can see its ears. There we go. So the other types of toys that I have are the crochet Harry Potters. So if I just move over here temporarily, they're hiding behind me here. And they are all part of the same range from Aldi in a kit. And then my other toys are just sort of erroneous ones that I've made for people. So I've got the NHS bear here, at the moment over here. I've done a knitted teddy bear before, but I knitted that flat, so when I folded it over in order to stitch it together and stuff the teddy bear, it wasn't a very circular or spherical head to the bear or a spherical body to the bear, but rather sort of a squashed oval rectangle-ish kind of body going on. So I've done knitted ones like that before. I've done other just little crocheted toys from a different pattern. I actually always thought that the first part of that looked like a little sack man, and then you just added the details. So that's the sort of erroneous section. And I'm not really sure where this particular toy that I'm about to show you is going to fit in, because it was from an Aldi kit, but it's knitted, so it really doesn't, it's not part of the Harry Potter range. It doesn't fit in with those guys, but then it also, is it enough to be part of like the erroneous crew at the end there? So let's see what you guys think. So the premise behind this particular toy was that at the start of lockdown I was watching the virtual zoos. So the zoos were really keen to try and just advertise that they have to close, but that means that all the admissions prices, all the admissions money that they used to make, they don't have anymore, and that's what they would use to keep feeding the animals, to buy food for the animals. So they hoped that they could raise some money through donations by doing virtual exhibits online. And I was really watching those and thinking it was amazing, and one creature in particular caught my eye. So I thought, right, can I take my crochet, snuggle and play patterns and edit one of them to make this creature? And I was talking about this to my husband, who swiftly went off to Aldi to go and do the shopping, and saw that they had a range of kits, and they had a knitted version of this creature that he brought back for me. And that was a red panda. So yeah, we have a knitted red panda here. Love the final result. The pattern actually did have some little like blue dungarees for him to wear, but I decided I prefer just having the red panda. What I will say, love the final result, hated the process. Not a ringing endorsement, I'm afraid. Basically, first, the yarn was awful, and I mean truly awful. You guys know that I use a lot of acrylic DK, which is a particularly cheap type of yarn. And yeah, I've never expressed any problems with that. The yarn that came in the Harry Potter kits didn't really have a problem with that. With any yarn, you can get a knot halfway through the ball if the machines have to switch to a different line. But, that's very infrequent in a good quality yarn. In this yarn, it was just constant knots. And if it wasn't a knot, the other problem was the spin. So the reason you spin a fibre is to strengthen it. So you have all these individual strands, and if you pull an individual strand, it's going to snap very easily. If you spin it, you add force between the strands, and that makes it harder for you to break by pulling. So in the middle of this ball of yarn, there would just be a section that had not been spun properly. That could have been potentially, again, because they were joining more fibre and it didn't get spun properly, or just because it wasn't spun properly in the first place. And it may as well have been a knot, because you still have to cut it out and get rid of it and rejoin your yarn. So the experience of using this yarn was horrendous. In some cases, the spin wasn't bad enough to cut and rejoin, but it wasn't great. So I don't think you can see it on camera, but I can see the occasional stitch where the yarn was not as tightly spun. So you lose stitch definition. Then you've just got the fact that this is a 3D pattern that was made on 2D on straight needles. So when you are increasing and decreasing, your work is trying to curl into this 3D shape, and that means you lose your tension. So at the top here, you can see that some of these stitches in the increase and decrease section are wider than the rest of the work. So I didn't enjoy the fact that I couldn't get the same tension. And the other thing is that you have this seam. So you have a seam here. There are seams on the arms and legs, but the good thing about them being in black is that you can't see it. There is a seam, however, on the tail that I've hidden underneath. There is a seam down the back, but I've hidden it. And the reason I've hidden it is because there were so many bad tension holes in this area that I took some spare yarn and I weaved in and out a little bit to cover some of those holes up. But that does also mean that you've kind of lost the definition of where the seam is there. The pattern for the head neck join was that the head was actually narrower than the neck, so that was harder to stitch in place. The instructions for where to stick the ears and the muzzle and everything were, there were no instructions, it was just put the head together. So I had to stitch the muzzles twice because they were too low at first. The ears were also a bit of a faff to get in place. So many complaints. I feel like I'm forgetting at least something that I did not enjoy about knitting this toy. And I just want to preface knitting this toy on straight needles. If this pattern was on double pointed needles, that would almost certainly improve the process a lot. If the yarn was just that little bit better, like the same quality as the Harry Potter kits, that would improve the process so much more. So I do like the finished product. I just want to say I do like the finished product, but I still think that at some point I'm going to crochet one, because I would like to make a red panda and enjoy making it. So yes, that is the red panda. I'm still going to put him over here with the bunny on the shelf with the rest of the toys. So yeah, I'm not going to do that again. If I see a knitted kit again, nope, not happening. So yeah, that is 2 more toys added to the shelf. And now I guess I better hurry up and tell you guys about the next vote, right? Because I need a new toy to make. So as with last vote, we still have contestants the zebra and the hippo. And our third option joining the race is going to be a duck. So yeah, what do you think? Should I do the zebra, should I do the hippo, or should I do the duck? Let me know in the comments down below which one you are voting for. I actually really enjoyed watching those comments come in to see who was going to win. Maybe this is the zebra's time to creep ahead, because the zebra was the other one in the running for the last vote. But you know, maybe we'll see some love for the hippo this time. Maybe the duck is the one that you guys enjoy the look of most. So yeah, let me know in the comments which one you vote for, zebra, hippo or duck. And in the meantime, I will work on some of my other projects to show you. I'll give you probably another 2 weeks to vote on the next toy. And yeah, I will see you in another video. Bye!